thank you for your children. I bless your name because there is no one like you. I glorify you, O God, because you are God.
The day does not usually begin like this at the Office of a Prisoner's Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, PROWA, devoted to the prevention of crime, torture and violence by improving the plight of prisoners, ex-prisoners, torture victims and youths at risk, with a mission to promote institutional reforms in formal and informal sectors for access to justice, rehabilitation, and social development. It is an unusual day, a day that marks the end of a long-drawn night of darkness in prison asylum and the ushering in of a new beginning, both for the rescued victims and PROWA that had fought the good battle. Dr. Uju Agomo, founder and executive director of PROWA, a prison and penal reform crusader and campaigner, hardly sits on the sidelines. Tirelessly, she pursues courses for a better correctional system in Nigeria. This time, it is the case of a mentally ill in the Nigerian prison system, the reclaiming of humanity for Nigerians betrayed by families and despised by society.
I want us to thank God for keeping us. I was just saying, some of us have been in prison for 21 years, 18 years, 12 years.
A lot has happened to them, individually and collectively, altering their lives. Most of them have been betrayed by families, others despised by the society over their peculiar circumstances, but all have silently been bearing the common trademark of being double victims. By the law, they are of unsound mind. In fact, the law describes them as lunatics. According to the families, they are burdens that should be disposed of, like used paper napkins. Their families would rather have them locked away in prisons than care and cater for them or have them treated in hospitals. The society would rather have them chained than give them access to free quality health care provision. They are locked up for years in many prisons across Nigeria. These ones have been confined at the Enugu Maximum Security Prison long before today.
There are people who are in the prisons who are mentally ill, but who needed not to be in the prison in the first instance, which means they did not commit any offense. Funny enough, these ones are classified as the so-called civil lunatics. Now, there are also a second category of persons who have committed some offenses. Maybe they killed or they did something, but at the time they committed that offense, it was obvious that these people have some mental imbalance. So this normally should be the so-called described criminal lunatics. So which means that they have committed some offenses. So there is an offense already on ground, but the state of mind of this person is such that you know that there is some imbalance and therefore needed to be treated differently. Then the third categories are the people who had committed some offense. They committed those offenses not because they were mentally ill. They came into the prison normal, but because of certain conditions and stress within the prison itself, they now broke down and then manifest certain mental illness.
In my last exercise at jail delivery, we discovered that some of those inmates regarded or labeled as insane were not insane in the first place. They were people whom the families wanted to get rid of.
We've had instances of people who own properties, maybe their parents died, and somebody, an uncle or somebody wants to forcefully take these possessions away from them. Before you know it, the person does whatever and brings them into the prison.
To go to magistrate courts, swear to an affidavit, and then get him remanded in prison custody.
An asylum is actually it's like a psychiatric hospital in a prison. That's technically what it should be. Now, it's supposed to solve a problem. But in doing that, it has also generated other problems.
The problem, therefore, is that they are not thinking about the complete welfare of these people. They're not thinking about how do we provide a proper therapeutic environment. In a sense, do we then have a system within the prison that adequately will manage these people? Not to talk about the human rights violation, because cannot be justified anywhere on the face of this earth that somebody who did not commit any offense is put in prison.
I was accosted by the policemen and then charged on an allegation of stealing 2 bottles of malt. I was brought to the prisons and referred to the asylum section.
It's a serious case of abuse of human rights. The only reason that person is there, as you've just said, is because the person is mentally sick. Instead of taking the person to hospital, if somebody has malaria, the person goes to hospital. If somebody has a heart disease, hypertension, any kind of ailment, the person goes to hospital for treatment. Then why should a person who is mentally sick be kept in an asylum? It's a serious abuse.
And ironically, the majority, more than 2/3, are the people in the so-called prison.
The prison in the first place is not the appropriate place to remand such people. There are psychiatric hospitals, there are native institutions that also deal with the mentally ill.
In other words, I say that in dealing with the so-called civil lunatics, this is completely something that must be totally taken away from the criminal justice system.
Worldwide, mental illness has been denied the appropriate attention it deserves. The World Health Organization estimates that in 25% of the countries of the world, with nearly 31% of the global population, there are no mental health legislations. Even in countries with mental health legislation, half have national laws passed after 1990. Indeed, 15% have legislations enacted before 1960, long before the introduction of most of the innovations currently in the treatment of mental illness. As of today, the rights of people with mental disorders are seriously violated on a regular basis. These people are also exposed to stigma, discrimination, and marginalization in all societies. Worse is their perception and treatment by the law and the entire criminal justice system in Nigeria. Widespread is still the misconceptions associated with this disorder that people living with mental disability live under very harsh, improper, and abusive conditions. The irony is that instead of the law providing protection for them, it is the very instrument encouraging the various forms of abuse on them. Countries with a federal system of governance as Nigeria allow states to enact their mental health laws. Enugu State is one of the states that have done so.
The lunacy law we have here is not part of our criminal jurisprudence. It is specifically provided for that each local government area should have an asylum for purposes of keeping such persons and treating them therein. But I don't think there is any local government that has complied with the provision of the law in respect of setting up asylums.
Establishing its asylum is to keep those who are judged lunatics and who have committed an offense, to keep them separately from those who are called normal people who committed offenses, and for the purposes of medical observation.
Yeah. Exactly. Time had stood still between the periods when a sort of national desire was first expressed to address the peculiar problem of processing persons with mental disability within the criminal justice system, and Prawa spearheaded concrete steps that eventually led to concrete results. In 1999, the National Committee on Prison Decongestion, set up by the federal government, identified 100 mentally ill prisoners and submitted the list to the presidency after its assessment tour round the country. The recommendation was to transfer them to the nearest mental health facilities or psychiatric hospitals in the locations. By October of the same year, the Nigerian president accepted the recommendation. Ironically, 13 years after the presidential directive, the instruction remained an executive order on paper. Nothing was done, no strategic and sustainable process adopted to continue on this path. The buck had no table to stop on, as the blame game continued to be traded from one agency to another and from one level of government to other successful levels of government.
It is just an arrangement between the police and the courts. And then they will just present the person at the prison door, and the prison will have no choice but to accept such a person. And they will tell you that the person is a civil lunatic.
We must promote a justice system and justice delivery system that is efficient, that is effective, that is humane, that is just.
I want you to know that the work of the prison is only self-custody. When you have that at the back of your mind, that it's not the prison that brought this person in. And the prison officer only accepts that person by the production of a valid warrant. Keep this person here until I need him. Fine. You put him there. By the time that person is needed, the court comes and take him. That is the concept. But we discovered that at the time, keep this person here, we kept him in toto. So we now start fighting. No, this person has overstayed. We are the one feeling the pains. Because if the prisoner now reacts, he's not reacting with the police. He's fighting with us because he believes that we are the one that lost him.
I went to court on two occasions. Okay. And the first occasion, my warrant was produced. Okay. On the second occasion, my warrant was produced. Okay. And the magistrate kept adjourning the cases and asking that I be remanded in custody. Okay. And then during the third visit, or adjournment, I knew exactly the dates. That was supposed to be August 7th or 17th, August 7th, I think, 2000. Okay. I was due to appear again in the court. Yes, okay. I was due to appear again in the court. I waited for the warden officers to come with the production warrant so that I can go with them to the courts. They didn't come. It came up to about 9 a.m. I started agitating to the warders, and then they seized me and then lynched me and put me under fetters.
My recommendation is that the courts should be very slow in remanding these mentally ill to the prisons, because the prison in the first place does not have the facilities to contend with their state of health.
The other option is to also come into psychiatric hospital and build a prison. Now you call it a secure unit.
With about 83 mentally ill inmates in Enugu prison alone, 17 less the number that was identified nationwide in 1999, the situation has reached an alarming rate.
Excuse me, sir. Yes, how are you? Please, I came here at 5 of September 2009. They say that they gave me 3 years for court. Okay, I hear.
Even staff of the prison and prison managers can no longer veil their emotions when it comes to the agonizing and dehumanizing situation these inmates are exposed to.
He bothers us because they are just being left here and we are not doing anything about their issue. We are not doing anything about their issue. I have to be very frank with you. They are just being left here. Let me use the word. They are just being left here to follow.
There are people who have stayed there for up to 13 years. The average length of stay there will be around 5-6 years. Somebody is mentally ill. He's supposed to receive treatment in a hospital. But because of the gaps and the inequities in the system, the person is processed into a prison and forgotten there.
And unfortunately, there's only 2 of these asylum in the whole of Southeast prisons, Enugu and Aba. And so you can see that it is congested, that probably the one that we have in Enugu here, they are not only from Enugu State. They might be from Anambra, they might be from Delta, they might be from Edo, because there's no asylum in all these states. I'm talking in terms of prison. The prison in Edo will transfer any mentally ill person to Enugu, and you cannot reject. Ebonyi will transfer.
Behind this door, night and day, are men who too cannot reject their plight of being shut out of life as well as kept away from the society. With them, life has been one unbroken darkness. Inmates shared the plight of a savage existence in a civilized age. The gap between what the United Nations standard minimum rules for the treatment of prisoners prescribe and reality is wide here. The spirit of the Nigerian Constitution, written in bold letters offering protection to every citizen irrespective of circumstance, does not apply here. Every Nigerian, proclaimed the Constitution, is entitled to life, to liberty, to dignity, to natural justice, and to fair hearing.